We have to use the YouTube before we start, otherwise we would do that. It's muted. Okay.
Good. Okay, I'd like to call a meeting of the IDA on October 26th. Order at 9:17 a.m. Can I get a motion to approve the September 28th meeting?
So
Or
moved.
minutes? Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Phil. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, supplemental project authorizing resolution from New York Williamson one LLC project.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, yes, if you could scroll down to the one pager. So I know at the last meeting, Pam, you mentioned to have sort of a one pager on our pilot project. So we just sort of know where we are at with the pilot project and any updates. So I created a IDA pilot summary for New York Williamson one, especially with this one because we've had multiple changes to it. So if you look up on the top, it talks about the project, the total project cost, and then what we have passed. And then I did talk about the second supplemental authorization resolution that we're talking about today. But this is a sort of overall synopsis of the pilot of New York Williamson one LLC. As it lists here, we did approve it last year, and now Generate, which will be acquiring the solar project, needed some additional changes to the project cost. And this pilot summary is also included with a letter from their attorney explaining those changes. So last month when he presented the changes to you, again, it was total project cost, but they did not include the acquisition fee. So that's why it's now at $6.2 million. The other change that they have is the mortgage tax exemption. With this project in particular, like most circumstances in our economy, costs are getting higher. And so that's why they've had so many changes with this pilot application that we initially approved in August of last year. So if you scroll down to the end, so all of this has remained the same except for, and I put it right down here, of updates as of 10/25/22, which is mortgage tax exemption and total project cost. So those are the two things that we would be addressing here at this resolution today.
Katie, one of the conversations we had last month was for, I think, another project and this one, if I'm remembering
10-year.
correctly, is the 10-year.
Yes.
And does it say anywhere on this cover sheet?
It does, yeah, right up here, it says
Okay.
pilot term, and for this one, because it is a solar projects are at 15 years.
That's, okay,
Yeah,
that's what,
I was wondering
whereas
the
all
same
of our
thing.
other projects are at 10 years, so yes, I did add that as
okay,
well.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
Mhm. And this is one thing I'm planning on doing with this summary is one, it will be updated, but as you can see at the bottom, I put what we've updated, so then you can know
That's helpful.
what has changed. So it will be a living document. Usually it will end when the project is actually approved, but in this case, we've had a few adjustments. But again, we will sort of list that out in this pilot summary. So then the board has a good sort of one page of what are we talking about and what are the updates going on.
Thank you very much. Helpful. So I make a motion, we approve.
thanks, Pam. Thanks, Phil. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Back to the PAAA Paris.
PAAA is another way to say it, Scott.
Hmm?
Okay, that's-
People, yeah, okay.
Let's scroll to the report. Please. So just like CFDC, these are IDA's Paris budget reports, again, due October 31st. Audit and finance, we did dive through every line item yesterday. and assess the revenues and the expenses. The actuals are again from the EFPR audited financial report that we received in March. 2022 are the estimated for our QuickBooks, and then any additional that we see forthcoming for the next few months. 2023 through 2026 are the budgeted figures we have come up with. Not too many major
Right.
changes with the IDA.
Questions or comments? Good. Okay. You up again? Oh. Oh, we didn't? Oh, sorry, you're
I
right.
make a
I didn't,
motion, we
thanks. Pam.
approve. Second.
Thanks, Julie. All in favor? Vote. Okay. Now you're. This way.
Yeah, we can talk about that first.
Everybody read it?
Some braille.
Scott, can I borrow your glasses?
No, it's okay.
Braille.
Hold on.
I have to run down the other.
Wow.
So this is new. We are ahead of schedule in pilot billing. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
we have billed out September 1st, all of the bills to the pilot customers were generated and sent out. The due date was September 30th. We received everybody's payment in full, so there were no late fees this year. With that, we separated all the funds to each taxing jurisdiction and issued the checks, which honestly are about a month and a half ahead of schedule, which is fantastic. So all the taxing jurisdictions greatly appreciate that. Over all the way to the right-hand side, you will see the check reference numbers. And if they have cleared the bank from when I generated this report a week ago today, majority of them have cleared. But it's going to be kind of limbo until the end of the month. So you might see a few show up on the November statement. A couple extra things we did do this year for pilot billing. We send out summaries to each taxing jurisdiction as soon as we send pilot bills to the customers. This helps each taxing jurisdiction, school, town, county, villages know what they can expect to receive from the IDA for the pilots. And it also, we've added a new section on there, which are notes, which reference any changes in the pilots within their taxing jurisdictions from last year or to next year. So especially if you're switching from year 4 to 5 in a pilot, it goes from 100% abatement of the added value to 50%. So it's a huge pilot revenue that's going to be coming in to the taxing jurisdiction. So it's a good thing to help them budget. Next page, please. As you can see, we have a lot of pilots going on, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
Great.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. These are the checking accounts, again, as of last week, a week from today. You have your main checking, your savings, your 2 savings, and then the CD. Not sure if there's a next page. I can't remember. Oh, yeah, the budgets. And then as explained in CFDC, this is a new report. So this is our budget that was approved in December for operating of this year compared to the actuals of this year so far from last week. So your first column are your actuals, your middle is your budget.
Good.
For the most part, we are pretty even, especially considering we still have a couple more months. And we think we're going to get a couple more pilot applications and then especially one more closing too. One thing I do want to reference, there is under contracted services income, it's line item 443. I'm sorry. Yes, 443. Yep, right there, 50,000. So that is a quarterly draw that we pull from the county. So every quarter, it's 12,500 that we pull. Years ago, it used to be 135,000. Those are for outside services, mainly outside accounting services that come in and do the quarterly audits and stuff like that. Over the past 5 years, it's been slowly decreasing that we've been doing more work in-house with staff as opposed to outside services, getting more trainings, and so forth. So that by line item has gone from 135 to 85, now it's down to 50. Down at the bottom,
Jamie, I'm just noticing, project planning funds is 165,000. Yeah, but that's 135.
yeah, I'll change that. I'll have to look at the budget last year, but. Do you
We
think we're
didn't
gonna
have it in
draw
the
any by
budget.
the
We
end of the
didn't
year?
have it in the budget last year for the COVID. Well, a reduction in our budget, but these are two line items in our department's county budget. Committed to providing, well, funding, the first one, the quarterly draws is operational expenses of the IDA. The second one, probably called project planning funds, is effectively what we use as matching grant funds for applications, but was not included in the budget this past year. But it's in our budget for next year. Matching funds for grant applications, special projects, things like that.
If you scroll down into the expense section. Sorry, next page. There we go. That top section right there, that is the total of the contracted services. So that $50,000 of income, this is what it's used for. So far we are at about 25,000. So we've only used half of that. So we expect to issue a check back to the county to refund the funds we have not used. So again, we went from 135,000 to 85 to 50, and we're not using 50. So I'm not sure exactly how much, but this will get us in the ballpark to know what to budget for the next few years moving forward too.
Scott, Bill, so you guys know?
We'll be glad to accept that
I
25.
know, we're not wrong. Put your cost down.
You know, you'll see
Give us
here,
time.
it's legal
Minutes.
fees, it's outside accountant fees, like you get a quarterly audit from like Allied Financial. We actually went through and did a brand new report, which is called a biannual financial review that Katie and myself put together and done show it to the audit and finance committee. So we are changing a lot of things in-house as opposed to going to outside services.
Nice. Very good.
That's great.
Good. Questions, comments? Yeah, Brian, you're
I'll
up.
just related to this, I'll say, two things. One, I'm happy with the way that we work with the municipalities on reporting and providing information. It's like a very good working relationship that is outside of the scope of what we're required to do. And then two, the way that we continue to distill information and share with you guys, I think is also important, kind of bottom line, the impact that the IDA has on the economy and the projects that we're supporting. So, in fact, yeah, sure.
There's like, right now I count 12 solar projects in Wayne County.
Sounds right. Yep.
And I don't know if anyone else read the article, big article Sunday in the paper about a group in Rush that is protesting a big facility in their town.
I missed that one.
It's a really good article. It's
I
long.
don't remember how big it was.
We'll pay, is it a Democrat?
I think it jumped 4 times in the
It's changed. Okay.
I know
paper,
Democrats
you know,
are
it jumped,
listed.
turn to this page, turn to this page.
Okay. Mhm.
So it's a long one.
Mhm.
Anyway, in the course of reading the entire article, there was some comments about, the politically motivated push for solar and wind,
Mhm.
and definitely coming from Washington DC to Albany to, it's just a mandate that there's so much has to be built in that 10-year period of time to meet their
Yeah.
goals, right? So my question to you is, do they actually give you a directive that you have to approve so many projects?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no. Although there are a lot of moving parts here, but no, and the short answer is no. But there are sort of typical IDA supported projects that go up to, get up to 5 megawatts, but you'll tend to see it in several projects here that are 3-5 megawatt projects. And then there's a tier above that.
The utility grade ones?
And it's kind of in between, but then you get to the utility grade one, which is about 200 megawatts and larger, the large scale stuff. I'm pulling up the article here, the story. the Rush project, but state has their goals. But local land use is still in play when it comes to the smaller ones. Used to be, it's called 94C now. That's the state's ability to cite projects out, be careful how I say that, but basically outside of local approval, although the local folks are involved.
And
it's all an effort
To the whole.
It's all an effort to accelerate the development of renewables. Now, there are lots of conversations out there about projections on the electrical load, if you will, and the need for our ability to meet that future projected load based on development of renewables and the state's goal of getting everyone off of natural gas. Not to mention what's included in renewables, including Gannett and otherwise. We're just at a meeting yesterday about the lack of, if you will, capacity within the generation system or the distribution system for that matter, and how it's hindering economic development projects, not in just New York, but specifically in New York, especially when compared to other, let's say, overbuilt areas, including Carolina and Ohio. So we're regionally or statewide competing, and there's just lots of concerns about the balance between the state's goals of the utilization of renewable energy and what we need to meet future demand, including electric vehicles, future economic development projects, and just the increase in the usage in total as a footprint of a house or a business in general. So certainly a balancing act, but we are not mandated to approve projects, although specific to the business of the IDA, solar projects are exempt in New York. So our pilot provides a payment above nothing, which is kind of a flip of what we usually do with pilot agreements. The standard IDA pilot project where we're pushing down costs and providing a payment lower than what they would have paid at full taxation.
They're exempt anyway.
They are exempt, 487, New York State Real Property Tax Law 487 exempts solar projects from property taxes.
But let me ask you a question. A lot of the land that they use is leased. So does that, so what does that do for the farmer that? Does that piece get taken off their tax bill?
So the leased land, so it does provide a general rule of thumb where the typical lease agreement provides $1,000 an acre on a land lease for solar project. Although we're finding more, it's a bit of a side note, but we're finding that more projects are purchasing land, which creates complications, frankly, with there's an assessment tool that assessors are, well, there's a moratorium on it, but assessors will be required to use this assessment tool to assess the value of the land and the improvement. Now, it doesn't affect the project, generally speaking, until the expiration of the pilot, but I think the idea is that it's based on depreciation and revenue. So if there's no revenue getting generated by the land, if the tool says that the land is worth nothing, which is ridiculous. Anyway, it is. You heard me say it. It's ridiculous. The land is worth something. But to your question, the land.
It is a
exempt.
change of use though, right? So
Well,
that's
so,
not.
there's
cornfield
other
anymore.
complications. If it's active farmland and they've been claiming an ag exemption, which is sort of fill out the paperwork, submit it to the assessor and you get it for the most part. That goes away and they're required, the taxing jurisdictions can go back 5 years and back charge what they didn't pay based on the ag exemption. So it creates the switch in use creates an influx of revenue, if you will. But the pilot, and this is where things get a little finicky, if you will, because for every pilot, we create a base value. That's effectively usually the land value, right? And if you build a building on top of it or a solar project, that's the improved value. That's what's abated. We don't abate land values, but getting at the value of the land, creating that base value sans the ag exemption. So that's part of the pilot payment. It's not just the pilot payment, right? The $5,500 per megawatt is what we charge. If you're interested in how we compare to other IDAs or other communities, we're right near the top. I'm only aware of one that charges a little more, 6,000. But in our agreements, we include what we call a host community benefit payment baked into our agreements that provides 25,000 per megawatt to the town. So that's a nuance that we have, and that adds additional cost to the project. Provides a additional benefit to the local folks, and really balances the scales between what schools get and what towns are getting as far as revenue associated with 15 years worth of benefits. It's really complicated, and I jumped around a little bit there, but, and
I guess I just have one more question.
yeah.
So when you're getting a solar, let's say you're a farmer, going back to that example, and you're gonna lease
Right,
out
lease
a
my land.
portion of your land
Mhm.
to the solar, do you have to get a subdivision approval on the town level to get that?
No, usually, and
Because
we
that
kind
would
of went through this
Yes, we
recently.
did.
Haven't
We
been
just
paid
went
for
through
They
that.
do,
Yeah.
they do what we do. Think of it sort of like an overlay on top of the parcel. It's the stub parcel or sub parcel, call it either one. So if you look at the tax ID number, there's a 0.1 after it.
Mhm.
That's sort of the way that the assessor and that we can determine the property being used for the solar project outside of the larger parcel
Mhm.
and the value associated with that piece of the property. We only do it for solar. But we went through a scenario where we thought we might apply to some other project, but well, it's the hotel in Mass, when it's next door to the KFC, they currently are sharing a parcel. Separating those values, because we're not gonna exempt the KFC, but we are the hotel. So anyway, it's an example of a subdivision, an example of why a project where we would or are requiring subdivision of the property so that we're not exempting a piece of, or a project, if you will, that is not allowed to be exempt, or that we wouldn't want to.
Interesting.
Does the article speak to jurisdictions, counties or towns setting a limit on how much of the land could be used for solar?
Well, that's definitely in the conversation, and also, you know. One of the things, like he mentioned, they took away Article 10, which was a board that
Yep.
reviewed the property use. And they instituted this different thing where there's one
And
guy,
of course, see, it's more,
one guy in charge, and
it's very administrative at
pushing
the
it,
state
they're
level.
pushing it solar really hard, really hard. So that's why I asked, the question is, you know, do they actually push so hard to the point where they actually mandate maybe a certain amount of projects get approved?
This
by-
is really gonna be a
Economic
difficult thing,
development.
yeah, it's gonna be a difficult thing moving forward. I mean, the state has the right to cite what they determine to be facilities that are needed. Think like another nuclear plant for that matter. I mean, there's some, you know, landfills might be another example of a land use that
Jails.
nobody wants. Jails.
Jails.
Jails is a great example. So this is, you know, to the
But not
public
broadband.
benefit. And, it's really,
Come,
but I'll say, I mean, this comes up a lot, and I would say the best prepared community is the one that is in the best position to push back against updated comp plans, solid zoning codes,
Yeah.
limits on potentially the conversion of farmland to solar uses, and being very descriptive in, you know, Katie knows this, and you go through case law in planning school, and you talk a lot about land use. Goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and comprehensive plans are the most defensible element you can have in place relative to pushing back against land uses that aren't consistent with your comp plan. I mean, it's been defended at the Supreme Court, I don't know, dozens and dozens of times. So we talk about this, we just talked about this. I have a strong interest in supporting the municipalities and updating comprehensive plans. And it's difficult, I know, at the local level, especially, you know, it came up yesterday in a meeting relative to economic development projects and their industrial site developments. And, you know, you hear about the big mega site out there in Onondaga County. And there are questions being asked, do we have those types of sites in our region or in Monroe County or in Wayne County? And it comes down to, do we want that type of 1,200 acre, 1,500 acre business park? Where would it go? So we have a pending grant, so we're doing a farmland protection update this year. That'll really address renewables. it's gonna be recommendations, if you will. The county doesn't have land use control that towns do, or towns and villages. But it'll be informative to the balance between the protection of farmland and provide some recommendations on updated codes. We have a pending application for a smart growth plan in the county. Keen on, Genesee County did this, and I thought it was a great project for them, and it really led to what I would consider to be a strong update to the county's comp plan. I'm not a huge fan of county comp plans because counties don't have land use jurisdiction, but it's informative and could help guide municipalities to update the comp plans. Where do we want to drive development? If we're trying to grow, if you will, want to increase population, to what extent? We want to increase jobs, right? So the two kind of go hand in hand. We want to protect farmland, rural character, quality of life. Where are we on the economic development side of the office saying, here are the sites that we have available, and everyone's on the same page as, yeah, if we have a 200,000 square foot economic, a larger Amazon warehouse distribution center. Well, are there sites in Wayne County where we would be recommending to drive that development on the same page with the municipalities? The only way to do that is to walk through your land use, develop a zoning code and a comp plan that are consistent with, here's where we like development, here's where we want to maintain that sort of character of, not development, right? The rural, I hesitate to say rural character, but the character of the county, we want to maintain that type of space. So it's that balancing act. Same with renewables. It's where would that, if you have an area in your municipality, you say, here's where we would accommodate that type of project development. It makes it a whole lot easier to say no over here. And you say, well, we'll allow it over here, but not over here. It's just that much more defensible. So, since I got it, we continue to grasp at straws, frankly, to find what I think we, back of the envelope says would be 50,000 a town, maybe more, times 15 towns. What's the math? I don't know, 2 million, $3 million to provide funding for every municipality to update a comp plan and hopefully in turn revise their zoning code. It's a lot of money, not that much money, but I think it would be informative to the county and the towns. And I'll say at the end of the day, it's all very cooperative, given that the county is the towns. We have board of supervisors, it's town supervisors, so it's probably a little longer.
We're in the process of updating our whole plan, so that would be good
Yeah.
to throw in there.
Yep.
I
So
mean,
we're,
it's more forward thinking, it's like a strategic plan, you're,
Right.
rather than letting things happen to you and looking back and
React.
saying, woulda, coulda.
I
Mhm.
came back from this meeting yesterday. I talked to Katie and Ariel about, my goal. I think through the IDA or the Economic Development Side of the office, want to accommodate and we're focused on business attraction. Where and how in the right place and at the right scale that's suitable to Wayne County. Do we want a mega site? Where would it go if we did? We, the collective we. So if an opportunity like Micron came around, said they were interested. There's two things that are attractive about Wayne County, three things, really. The big three is flat, open land, the availability of water, and the availability of high capacity transmission. And we have all three. High capacity transmission lines running two ways across the county. A lot of flat open land, and we certainly have access to water up on Lake Ontario. Those are three big things when we talk about chip fabs or future large industrial development projects, not to mention crypto and server or big server plants. Those are all,
Right?
what's that?
Food.
It's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But controlled environment agriculture or cold storage for that matter. Those are smaller users, but important to the next. It's all about, well, hopefully we're setting the groundwork through some of the smaller, if you will, studies we're doing on the planning side. Derelict, sometimes it's starting at the bottom. Let's address the stuff that needs to be addressed, brownfields and derelict properties. But then kind of building on that, we're doing a housing study, business park analysis, farmland protection plan. All these are kind of elements of what would my plan is to develop into a more of a comprehensive county plan so that we can help guide and work with municipalities and kind of work together collectively to say, here's where we want to accommodate new development, here's where we want to limit.
It's just a whole lot. It's better, of course, to have a plan then when there's a request, you stick to your plan.
Yep.
Rather than developing your plan as a request. Because if you're
Right.
not consistent, you know, why did you approve this one and not this one? It's messy.
I agree.
Yep.
I was, just to finish my thought there, so all the IDA information that we're sharing with municipalities, that we share with you guys, information we collect in the back and forth with municipalities, in a couple weeks, Ariel, Katie, and Jamie are going to Utica
Yes.
for a meeting. NYSEDC is the sort of, they aggregate all the IDAs and provide trainings and seminars. And Jamie will be presenting on our Paris reporting among Onondaga or Monroe County and a consultant. So several, if quite a few IDAs either pay attorneys or consultants or defer to the towns or villages on information relative or billing relative or reporting information relative to pilots. We basically take all that responsibility in-house, and I think everyone's eyes are gonna be open pretty wide on the work that we do here, and I think we're setting a bar, if you will, on how we're sharing information and reporting with municipalities, not only that, but with you guys and the community, if you will, on the distribution of pilots, their impact on the economy, the jobs created and associated with those projects. So I'm really happy with how we've gone about the development of the process that we've managed over the just under 6 years. But it's been a process, and I'm pretty happy with where we are and where we're headed. So, good job, blow everybody's minds with all the work that we do here. Otherwise, on executive director updates, I mean, we have a couple projects in development that some have been in the news, some have not yet, but I expect that we'll bring a couple pilot applications to the board next month for some pretty good projects that are for the most adaptive reuse projects, which again is, we talk about the preservation of open land and character, good projects in the works. So you'll hear about those in a couple of weeks. Otherwise, I just gave you a big broad brush about a lot of the stuff that we're doing,
Okay,
all connected to economic development stuff. The one other thing I'll add that has the potential to impact the IDA fairly directly is the ongoing discussions relative to the reuse of the Butler Correction Facility. County met with state officials several weeks ago related to this new prison redevelopment commission that the state put together based on the closure of several additional correction facilities over the last year or two. But including Butler, which has been closed for about 10 years still, if I'm getting the number right, give or take.
Yep.
And if some of you would recall, the state went through the process of issuing an RFP in 2018 based on some interest of a company in reusing the site as it sat vacant. And that whole thing, frankly, was it didn't result in any responses to their RFP for a myriad of reasons. And here we are again with a new staff, if you will, at the state level and new eyes on this. And we're pushing very hard to get as much local control as possible. Not only redevelopment of the site, but the funds associated with the impact of the public transformation fund. So that's ongoing discussions that may result in, and I'm being mindful that I wouldn't want to hold or carry this property for very long, and I'm working on lining up some potential projects, if you will, in the background, but it may end up that the idea is the holding entity or the agency facilitating the transaction of state, county, IDA project. So it's ongoing discussions with the state, and we're developing a proposal to make to the state on our path to getting a reuse project over there. But just as a heads up, is the idea is part of the next discussion.
Okay.
That's all I got.
good. Thanks, Brian. I suppose you covered other business with all that too, right?
Unless you guys have other things you want to talk about.
Okay. Next meeting, November 16th. At 9 o'clock. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thanks, Bill.
Second.
Thanks, Pam. All in favor? Opposed?